Hi, you're listening to Phil DeBella, and this is FlashCast by PDB. Today we're going to talk about foreign aid. Yes, given what's happening at the moment in Australia, especially on the Queensland and in northern New South Wales with all the fires, it's pretty scary and frightening. And firstly, a shout out to all of those amazing people, from the people fighting the fires right through to those that are bringing coffees and food and donating and all the rest of it. And if everyone can do a little bit, it goes a long way. And that's something I'm going to cover in today's Flashcast, because I've been asked many times about, as somebody who is quite giving in what we do. I've always believed in that from when we earned very little. We've had sponsored children in the Philippines, and we still do to this day, right through to sponsoring the Pajama Foundation camp every year, where 40 kids and their carers go away at Christmas time. Myself, my wife, my family believe in giving, and if everyone gives a little bit, and whether it's money or time, and it's all relevant, the amount is not the impressive part. The generosity and the act of heart is what matters, not the amount and what you give. A good time to be covering this topic with what's going on around Australia, but more particularly, I want to talk about foreign aid. And let me just start by giving some of the latest stats over the years, because it is a very hot topic. And yes, of course, Australia should be part of the bigger world and give and all the rest of it. But let me say from the onset that we should all be giving relative to what we can and to what is happening at the time. So relative to what we can afford, and relative to what's going on at the time. And it's no different to how we should be running our households. If we're making $100 and we're giving away $1, then fantastic if you can. If you're making 1,000 and you give away $10, great. Whatever puts you within your means and makes you comfortable. But more importantly, what's relevant to what's going on. And of course, if you're having bad issues or bad luck at home, or there's health issues going on, or kids schooling, then you're not going to be in a position to give as much. And now let's super track that to the economy of Australia. I believe currently, and this is from some stats, obviously from the famous Google, but on average, the Australians invest around 16% of the federal budget, 16% of the federal budget on overseas aid, which is about $4.044 billion. So let's just get our head around that. It's about $4.044 billion in overseas aid in what we give. And they're saying that that's about 0.21% of our national income, which is roughly 21 cents in every $100 goes towards foreign aid. Now, I'm not going to argue about the amount, and I'm not going to argue whether it's right or wrong. I'm not going to argue at all. I'm just going to give you my perspective, as I do in all of the flashcasts. And that simply is, that's okay when everything in this country is going perfect. So if our budgets are in surplus, the economy's strong, everything's tracking well, we've got great infrastructure, we have amazing health system, we've got, a great education system, and everything's tracking really well in our own country, then of course with surplus, I believe we should be out there helping as many people as we can. No different to making sure our own house is in order. Our kids are going to school, they're fed, they've got clothes, and of course, if there's some left over, that we do some positive with it and give. Now, I believe the same rule applies when it comes to federal budget. Now, let me say from the onset, a topic dear to my heart, and I will do some flashcasts on this later on, that the government doesn't make any money. The government simply disperses the money it collects from the people of Australia. So therefore, they're caretakers, and their responsibility is actually far greater. They're not running a business as such that makes money. They don't have a revenue problem. They generate revenue from the people of Australia. And of course, according to how they actually place laws in place, determines how much revenue they make. But again, that's for another flashcast. So with the money that they're generating, roughly 16% of it is going to foreign aid. And again, I say, I have no problem with that when everything is in order in Australia. And as we know currently now, it is not. It's not in order. We have big issues going on, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to need help. So my simple position on this, and I've been asked by many followers that have sent me questions in over the last few weeks that have said, what would you be doing right now in terms of foreign aid? And I'd be slashing foreign aid. I'd be putting provisions in the budget that says foreign aid is all relevant to what's happening in Australia. And currently, with so much going on, there's going to be a lot of people that need help. So the 16% of the budget might be cut down to 14% or 12% or even 10%, given the economic, occurrences of what's happening right now from the result of the bushfires. So in short, for example, Indonesia, I believe, is around 350 to 400 million a year that we give money to. Well, how about we tell Indonesia that we drop that down to, say, 300 million because we need to shave 100 million to provide some to the farmers. And again, it's not about targeting certain places. It's no different to running a business. You cut where you can, and you take it and give it where it's needed. And unfortunately, that the way that the political system runs, where it's a popularity competition, it's normally a case of whoever screams the loudest or wherever the votes are is where the money in that is going to go. So what do we do about that? Well, let me leave you with something to think about. Us as voters need to understand that we are creating the problem, that by our beliefs, by the way we carry on, by the way that we scream the loudest or not scream at all, we are actually positioning politicians to do things that are good or things that are bad. Because simply what the politicians are there to do is to disperse the money that they collect from us. Now, how they disperse it will be based on how you're going to vote. And there's no secrets behind that. And that's one of the reasons why I get involved on the outside of politics, to try and change the mentality and the vision of politicians, to ensure that they're running it no different to what a company or a business should be run, no different to a household should be run. That if you're making $100, you can't go and spend $120. And, if you're making $100, then there's basic needs that you need to take care of first, like food and shelter and education. And in the case of Australia, it's no different. It's education, it's health, it's infrastructure. And then you go and take what you have left over and you go and disperse it across to help other people. No different to how you run a household. But unfortunately, because us as voters most of the time are voting based on popularity, then politicians are going to simply take the money and spend it where people are going to be happy or where their perception of happiness is. Therefore, we create the problem. And foreign aid is no different. That those people that are screaming about us helping people in Indonesia or helping people in Southeast Asia or helping people, in America, or getting involved in what's going on in China or India, etc., then the government listens accordingly, because at the end of the day, their job is to just manage the funds that they collect. Again, government does not generate income, does not have a revenue problem. The revenue comes from the people of Australia. What they have is a spending problem. They have a budgeting problem. They have a strategy problem. If they're not spending the money in the right areas, then things don't get done. But again, they're only spending money in the areas that people want to, is this perception of popularity, so that they can get revoted. And I really want you to think about that, because I get asked about it a lot, and why politicians make certain decisions and why they don't, and why would I not get in politics. Now, let me say from the onset, I'm not built for politics. The way the political system works, my personality, I'm one that always says know your limitations. Politics is not for me, but I'm certainly want to be part of the change I want to see, and thus why I sit on advisory boards and work alongside of politicians, and of course only work alongside the ones that I believe in, that are authentic and believe that can make a difference, because I won't jeopardize my own brand or authenticity to work with the politicians that I don't believe in. But again, to the foreign aid, if you think about that and wrap your head around those numbers, 16% of our budget income goes to foreign aid. I believe that right now at a time, and it's not just now, it's when we had the floods many years ago, when different things are happening around Australia, we need to look after our own house first. There's a big message in that. Keeping it very, very simple without complicating things. It's no different to the way we run our households. As I keep saying, we look after our kids first, we look after shelter, we look after education, health, all that sort of stuff, put food on the table. Then if we have some left over, we go and we do things with it. We help others, we give to charities, etc., etc. Foreign aid should be no different in terms of what we're doing with the budgets in Australia. So for all of you, those that wrote into me and wrote questions about my position on foreign aid right now and what's happening with the bushfires, as I said, let me say in summary, a big, big thank you to everybody at any level that's getting involved to help those around us. We do need to look after our fellow Australians. We do need to look after ourselves first and make sure that everything's going to plan, and help where we can help, whether it's time or money. Then we need to make sure we're running the government. We're being very conscious of how we're positioning politicians and government in the messages we're sending, so that they disperse the money where we want it to be dispersed. Because at the end of the day, I don't believe that people in government come in with bad intentions, but certainly don't always do the right thing. But that often is triggered by the way that we act. So some nuggets there to think about. As usual, it's my personal views and opinions. It's FlashCast by PDB. Thanks for your questions. Keep them coming in. And until next time, be the best you can be. And as Gandhi says, be part of the change you want to see in the world.